Hello, Miss Kerry.
Hi, how are you?
I am good and so grateful to be able to have this conversation with you right now.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
Of course. Now we've got Kerry Washington on the Castle Show enforcing the importance of voting and voting early at that.
Yes, I mean, it's crazy. There's historic numbers of voting. In this country, 50 million people have voted, and in Arizona, over a million people have voted already, which is just historic and really so inspiring. But I've been spending time in Arizona because, I live in a state where voting is important, but not as important as Arizona. So
Yes.
it's just really awesome to see that people here are excited about voting, and I just want to make sure that everybody, no matter who you are, that you know your voice matters, your vote matters, that we need all of our voices in a democracy. We need everyone to vote.
I mean, obviously it's a historic election, but even more for like the local elections here in Arizona, we have an opportunity to really change things for our future.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I think that's one of the things that's so important is presidential elections are really important. They are. But local elections, you can really have such a huge impact on your life, on your community, on the rules that govern your everyday life, whether it's about schools or parks or roads or, all of those decisions are made in local elections. So it's really exciting that people are showing up, and I just want to be a part of the chorus of voices saying, please, please, everyone show up and vote.
Now, can you reflect on your very first time voting? Do you remember where you were and what you were feeling in that moment?
As a little girl, I used to go with my mom into the voting booth to vote. Obviously, I didn't vote, but my mom, I would witness my mom voting, and it had a huge impact on me. Voting has always been really important in my family. When I turned 18, my parents took me out to dinner, not because it was my birthday, but to celebrate the fact that I could vote now.
How awesome.
And they talked to me about it. And so I really have always, and listen, even all of that being said, I have not been a perfect voter. I have not voted in every election because I think it's so easy to think like, well, maybe it doesn't matter that much or I'm so busy. But this time around, we just cannot sit this one out. This is a really, really important time in our country to have our voices heard. So it's important to have a plan, to go to iwillvote.com. Wait, is it iwillvote.org? I think it's iwillvote.org. And you can go and get all of the information you need to vote. And also to listen, if you've already voted, it's important to go to your friends and family and tell them to vote, because the reality is there's all this research now that says that people like me, celebrities, people in the public eye, when we say everybody should vote, it has a little bit of an impact. But what really matters is when people hear from their sisters and
Yes.
their cousins, their neighbors, their parents. So you have so much power. Everybody listening right now, you have so much more power than I do to really impact whether or not people are voting. And I want people to know that. I want you to know that if you go to iwillvote.com today, you can learn what choices you have to vote early in your county. You can get all the information you need, and then you can send that information to your neighbors and your friends and family. Pick 3 people. Pick 2 people every day from now until November 3rd. And just tell them to vote, because voting is now also. We can't wait till November 3rd.
Yes.
Early voting is open. We are in voting season. Voting is happening right now. And I keep saying voting season also because right now is voting. Voting ends on November 3rd. But then also it's going to take some time for us to count the votes, right? Because there are some states like Pennsylvania, for example, where they don't even start to count their mail-in ballots until Election Day. So we all need to know that voting is now. Election Day is going to be a great celebration. But then also we have to be patient to make sure that not only every vote counts, but that we count every single vote.
We're dealing with multiple pandemics right now. What are some things you think we shouldn't get fixated upon or distracted by during this time? Like voter suppression. There's a lot going on in the world. There's so much information everywhere. What do we pay attention to?
If there's any confusion, go to iwillvote.com/AZ. And any, you want to make sure that the sources you're getting your information from are the right sources.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody who tells you that your vote doesn't matter or that you shouldn't bring your opinion, your heart with you into the polls, like that, don't listen to that. Like your vote belongs to you. Your voice belongs to you. You matter. And we cannot sit this one out. Like I'm here in Arizona today because I really want people in Arizona to know how important you are in this election, and not to tell people what to do, but to encourage people to know what their own power is, that you have the power to transform your community through voting and also through volunteering. You know, there's
Yes.
only 10 days, there's 10 days left. So if you go to iwillvote.com, you can also get information about how to volunteer, how to phone bank, how to text people all throughout the state, how to help your neighbor get to the polls. There's so many ways to make a difference right now.
Yes. And one of the things that really sticks out to me, you know, we hear a lot of the times the word democracy and minority a lot, but the word minority really kind of makes me feel some type of way, kind of questioning myself. Are we really the minority, or is that word just used to make us feel smaller than we really are?
Wow, it's a great observation. I don't ever use the word minority. I either use people of color, or I say Black folks or African Americans or Latinos or Latinx, whichever you prefer. But I think it's really important that we realize that we are not the minority, that we are, even women, you know, people refer to women as the minority, but we are the super majority, right? Like our voice matters so much. There's an old saying that says women hold up half the sky, but we all know we hold up more than half the sky.
Yes.
And the same is true for people of color. Like when you look at the numbers of people who have been affected by COVID-19, the Black and brown communities, Black folks and Latin folks have been affected so much more intensely by COVID-19. And we can't just stand around and pretend that the virus is going to go away. We can't just stick our heads in the sand and pretend that this pandemic is not happening. We're up against enormous crises in our country right now, whether it's COVID-19, whether it's the economic downturn, whether it's the climate crisis or a systematic bias and racism. We can't pretend that these things don't exist. We have to take care of the earth. We have to take care of each other financially with regard to health care. So all of this is on the ballot, you know, in order to protect health care, in order to protect our planet, in order to protect our society, our democracy even, you know, like it can be more difficult to vote in some places than other places. Voting can sometimes be intimidated or complicated. That's why I want people to go to iwillvote.com if you have any questions. But also, if you want voting to be easier the way it is in other democracies and other countries, then you have to show up and vote.
Yes.
You have to let your leaders know that. It's funny. I always say, you know, these elected officials, our congresspeople, our mayors, many of our judges, our president, they work for us. They get paid because we pay our taxes. When we pay our taxes, that money pays their salary. So we're the boss. And if we don't vote, we're not acting like the boss. We're acting like the victim. We have to show up and vote.
Ooh, yes. The analogy. I mean, it's not even an analogy. That's the reality. We are the boss. Well, I know you're on a tight schedule, Kerry. I have one last question for you. Olivia Pope famously loved her red wine and popcorn. What kind of setting will you be in come election night?
I think, you know, I'll be home for sure. That's a good question. I haven't been thinking that much about it because I've just been like, voting is now, voting is now. And I know that we won't have all of the answers that we're looking for on election night, but I'll be with my family. You know, we'll be, you know, loving each other and just like, you know, really praying for this country and hoping that all of the effort that we put in helps for our country to reflect the values of all of us and not just the wealthy few of us.
Yes.
I think that's what's so important is that, like, you know, I don't want a government that only reflects people who are rich and famous and powerful, because even though I might be the girl who played Olivia Pope now, that's not how I grew up. I grew up as a kid from the Bronx, a Black girl from the Bronx who, you know, had working class parents. And I know that everybody deserves to have a voice in this country, and I want to vote in ways that allow for all of us to have a voice in this democracy. So I'll just be praying for this country. And you know what? I'm going to be doing everything I can between now and then to make sure that I have no regrets. None of us should wake up on November 4th and feel like we could have or should have done more.
Yes.
So if you're wondering whether or not you should vote, just vote. If you've already voted, figure out how to volunteer and text your friends and family and tell them to vote.
Yes. Thank you so much. Beautifully said everything, and welcome to Arizona.
Thank you for having me. We're so excited to be here.